Welcome back, Regina.
Another character awakens from the curse in a Drizella and Regina filled episode of Once Upon a Time. Let's break down Season 7, Episode 6 right here on What Happened. Welcome back, Oncers. Lisa here with this week's recap of, well, I'll just let Maroon 5 introduce it. That's right, the title of this episode fits in with Ronnie because she finally awakens. That's right, the Queen Regina is finally back, but you know what? Things aren't going to be easy for her now that she is awake. And all of you after last episode who thought that it wasn't Victoria who cast this big curse, but it was Drizella, yeah, I give you a virtual high five. High fives all around. Because, yeah, this curse was Drizella's way of getting back at her mother and trying to make Lady Tremaine suffer. Now, I have to say I love this episode because it mainly focused on two of my favorites on the show right now, Regina and Drizella, and I gotta say both Lana and Adelaide knocked it out of the park with this one. But before I get to all the Drizella and Regina / Ivy, Ronnie, whatever their names are drama, let's catch up with Rogers. He is still on a mission to solve his missing girl case, and this time he's enlisting the help of Tilly. Since Weaver is now out of the hospital, but we'll have to take things easy, Rogers asks Tilly for some help. I'd also like to point out here how much I love Alice and how she stole the little bottle of ketchup from the hospital food tray, because that's something that I actually do from hotels, and why, I have no idea. Baby bottles are just really cute. Anyway, Tilly takes Rogers back to her shipping container home and challenges him to another game of chess because it helps her concentrate and she needs to be able to help him. She also doesn't want to reset the pieces because it's in the middle of a game, and she thinks things are more fun when you start in the middle. Roger tells Tilly that Eloise liked art, hated school, was an amateur poet, and was fearless until she disappeared. He also shows her the drawing of the protection rune. Tilly turns the chessboard around and gives Rogers a good piece of advice. She tells him to look at it again and what pieces he already has that he's not paying attention to.
Answer that, and you might find yourself on a very different path. One that leads to Eloise Gardner.
Rogers takes Tilly's advice and goes to look through his files again and decides to start with the guy that had that tattoo of the protection rune. He goes over to that dude's house, but he's a little too late to get any answers from him because that guy is dead on the floor. Yeah, someone got to him first, but who? Also, I'm totally going back to leaning towards Rapunzel being Eloise based off the description of the art, poetry, and being fearless here. Now for the Regina and Drizella show. Let's start in the Enchanted Forest realm, or whatever we're calling it these days. Henry and Ella end up getting jumped by some guys wanting to steal their magical carriage, and Regina shows up, fireball in hand, to help, but it looks like Henry and Ella are in pretty good shape. They got it all taken care of because they have a torque wrench and a trusty Tron lunchbox, and they don't really need Regina's help. Side note, it's a good thing Henry brought all his tools to fix his bike, but still, how on earth has that thing not run out of gas yet? Henry asks Regina to go with him on their next recon mission, but Regina says that she just saw Henry all grown up and he doesn't need her, so she lies saying that she's busy and can't go, and you know what? She says he doesn't need his mom around all the time. So now Regina is just wandering around the forest looking for something to do when she comes upon a woman in a hood who almost gets taken out by what looks like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horror's cousin. Regina saves the woman, who turns out to be Drizella. Now at first Regina isn't too happy to see Drizella and wishes she had been eaten by that plant, but once she hears Drizella's story, she kind of has a change of heart. Drizella just wants to get away from Lady Tremaine, and it's revealed that Drizella was actually born with magic, but her evil mother never let her cultivate it because she knew Drizella would use it to escape. Drizella says she's now in search of some kind of magic that she can steal to use against her mother. Now after hearing this, Regina sees some of herself in Drizella and also sees someone who now needs her since Henry doesn't need her anymore. So she decides to teach Drizella to use her magic that she was born with. Now Drizella seems to be picking things up pretty well, and Regina once again says that she was a lot like Drizella at her age, but she didn't have the right guide, and that's what she's trying to be for Drizella. Now since Regina didn't have that right guide, all her power came from anger and hate, and she cast a dark curse that she thought would give her everything she wanted, which it did for a little while, but it turned out she wanted all the wrong things. Only Henry ever made her truly happy. Drizella tells Regina that she wishes she had a mother like her, and that's when Rumple walks up. He catches Regina up on Belle and how he's ready to pass the power of the Dark One off the right way and how he's a changed man. He warns her though to be careful of Lady Tremaine because she has to know what's going on. Regina decides to check in on Lady Tremaine and shows Gisela in her magic mirror that Lady Tremaine is practicing removing Anastasia's heart to get ready to put a new heart in there to wake up Anastasia. And Regina informs Gisela that in order to wake up Anastasia, her heart has to be replaced with one full of belief, and Gisela then realizes that Lady Tremaine is planning on taking her heart. Gisela is now pissed and wants to kill Lady Tremaine in order to protect her heart, and wants Regina's help, but Regina says she doesn't want her to go down this dark path. Since Regina won't help, Gisela decides to recruit her prince to help her out, and he's about to kill Lady Tremaine when Regina shows up to stop it. Now it turns out that Gisela actually didn't bring the prince to the castle to kill her mother, but rather for herself to kill him so that she could turn her heart black so that her mother couldn't use it. She does just that, and now Gisela wants Lady Tremaine to suffer, and she knows just how, by casting a dark curse.
Or I can plant a seed of pain in your life. It'll start small, then it will grow until everything you see, you breathe, you feel is pain.
Damn, that girl seriously means some business. Wow, that heart turned cold in like the blink of an eye. Regina tells Gisela that if she does this curse that she's going to do whatever it takes to stop Gisela because heroes can always break curses. Well, unfortunately for Regina, everything she says that she's trying to kind of, help ends up just being an idea for Gisela. First, the mention of the dark curse put that in her head, and now she knows that she has to make her curse unbreakable, and then she disappears. Regina goes back to Henry and tells him how she feels stupid for what happened with Gisela, and they also have a nice mother-son moment about needing each other and stuff like that. Alright, so yes, we now know that Gisela cast this dark curse, and she made some fail-safes to make it harder to be broken. But what are those fail-safes? Well, we learned that in the Hyperion Heights storyline for these two, so let's get started with that. Ronnie and Henry are still confused by this picture of them, and Henry is pretty sure it has to be photoshopped just to recreate a scene from his book, which would make Ronnie the evil queen. Now I'd just like to take a moment to appreciate this badass Ronnie moment.
So Victoria's screwing with us.
Whoa, hey, slow down there, Babe Ruth. Jeez.
Jacinda then comes in to borrow some tools from Ronnie to fix up the food truck, and she gives Henry the cold shoulder because we learned that, well, social media ruins things in Hyperion Heights too. Jacinda saw all the pictures Ivy posted of herself and Henry on Halloween, and yeah, she's not too into Henry anymore. Lucy shows up later asking to see the picture of Henry and Ronnie because guess what? Ivy's plan is in motion, and of course Ivy told Lucy about the photo and what's in the attic. So Lucy believes that Ivy is on their side now, and she has to make Ronnie remember that she's Henry's mom, so Lucy sets out on another mission. Meanwhile, Ivy goes to check up on Victoria, who has a migraine, which Ivy blames on those hyacinth flowers, so she takes them and brings them up to the witch, who's super excited for them. When Ivy asks if they have the magic they need now, the witch says she just needs some fertile ground for the flowers, and reminds Ivy that they just need to be patient a little while longer.
Remember what I taught you. Remember how we survived. I know. I close my eyes. I imagine my mother's destruction.
Oh, the witch also says that Ivy needs to be wary of Regina because it probably wasn't wise to give Ronnie that picture, but Ivy says it's pretty much part of her plan, and Regina won't be a problem by the end of the day. Now, when Ivy returns with the fertilizer for the flowers, the witch works her magic and grows some kind of prickly plant that Ivy takes a piece of and squeezes its juices into a jar. Back to Ronnie and Henry. Ronnie is thinking about what Lucy said about Regina adopting Henry from Boston and all of that, and Ronnie says that she actually did try to adopt a baby boy once, but they told her she wasn't a good fit at the last minute. The two then decide that they just need to pretend to believe Lucy so that Lucy will finally believe the truth when she sees it, and the fantasy can kind of fade sooner, and thus begins Operation Heartbreak. Ronnie then pushes Henry towards Jacinda to ask her out and make things right, which he does with the trusty say anything boombox move. Ronnie goes to find Lucy and says that they're going to set out to prove this whole fairy tale schmerry tale thing right, so they go to Weaver for a favor, to see if he can find out if a woman named Regina Mills applied to adopt a baby in Boston years ago. Weaver really doesn't want to help until Regina says she'll owe him one, and Weaver's like, you know what, we got a deal. He ends up finding adoption papers that exist for Regina Mills, which of course shocks Ronnie because she pretty much thought it was all made up. Weaver reminds Ronnie she owes him a favor before leaving. She then looks over the papers and looks at the signature of Regina Mills and grabs her own pen and paper and tries writing the name herself, and well, what do you know, the handwriting is a perfect match, and now Ronnie's even more freaked out. She tries calling Henry, but he doesn't answer, and unlucky for her, Ivy shows up. And yeah, she uses the juices from that magical plant to drug Ronnie's drink, and after some flashes of her life as Regina, ta-da, Ronnie, or Regina, is awake. So why did Ivy wake up Regina? Well, because she needs her help, of course. When Ivy reminds Regina about the time that she said a hero always breaks the curse, Ivy points out that her curse is hero-proof. Right before the curse was cast, Ivy put a fail-safe on it. It turns out if the curse is broken, something bad happens to Regina's loved ones, which means Henry. That Ivy, or Drizella, whatever we want to call her right now, is a smart and evil one. She's kind of thought of everything, right? Well, Ivy is on the verge of making Victoria truly suffer, but she needs a little more time and she can't have anyone breaking this curse. So since Ronnie was always pushing Henry and Jacinda together, and true love's kiss can obviously cause some major damage with the curse, yeah, Ivy had to awaken Regina in order to stop that and have her keep Henry and Jacinda apart. Well, this definitely puts Regina between a rock and a hard place, because what's she gonna tell Henry now? She was always pushing Henry and Jacinda together, and now she's gotta rip them apart. Like, how is she really going to explain this to him? I don't know, but she's definitely in a funk, and when Henry returns saying that things went well with Jacinda, yeah, she's kind of just got this look on her face. It's kind of crushing. Now, when Henry asks how things went with Lucy, Regina ends up telling him that maybe if she knew a little bit more about him and his mother, you know, it could help. And Henry reveals the story that he knows, which is pretty much a carbon copy of Emma's childhood story. Now, as Regina looks like she's about to tell Henry something, she stops herself and just says that she's glad they're getting to know each other. And yeah, right now, my heart is breaking for poor Regina. Like, Henry is her world. Like, all she was trying to do was help Drizella. She had no idea she was actually giving Drizella all the tools that she needed to be an evil bitch. And now, because Regina was just trying to be a good person, Drizella has her backed into a corner, because Regina kind of loses either way, right? If the curse is broken, she loses her loved ones. If it isn't broken, she's still stuck in Hyperion Heights, awake, unable to tell Henry that she's his mom. And while I did love Ronnie, I am very glad that Regina is back. And I can't wait for her to figure out a way to take Drizella down. Like, there has to be some kind of loophole in this curse. And if anybody can figure out, it's gotta be Regina, right? Well, that wraps up the details of this episode. We now know more about this curse and how this one is going to be pretty hard to break. It's got some consequences to it. Ivy's pretty close to making Victoria suffer, but just how exactly? Is she planning on using this witch to maybe get rid of Anastasia forever? Or, you know, what is she gonna do? What suffering is she bringing upon Victoria? I'm also curious what favors Weaver is going to have Ronnie do for him, because we know he's awake, and I think he definitely wanted Regina awake for a reason too, otherwise he wouldn't have helped her get those adoption papers. Anyway, let's see the promo for next week to see if it gives us any hints on these questions.
A map to a tower in a distant realm.
A tangled riddle.
Who's that?
I'm Rapunzel.
A trip to Wonderland.
Alice.
Thought I warned you to go home.
Wait!
A special 2-hour event where mystery and adventure leads to an astounding revelation.
What does the name Rumpelstiltskin mean to you?
Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes! Rapunzel is finally coming into play, frying pan and all, and we're gonna get to see Wonderland again. But is this Rapunzel Wish Realm Hook's daughter, or is this just to throw us off? Is he gone into the wrong tower? The end of the promo, it looks like Regina is awake and trying to see if Rumpel is awake as well, but he kind of pretends like he isn't, right? I don't know. It's a 2-hour episode though, and it looks like it's going to be a fun one. It's now time for you to hit me up in the comments with all your thoughts on this episode. Are you happy Regina is awake? And what do you think Ivy is really up to? What do you think the loophole in this curse is? And who do you think is going to figure it out? Will it be Regina? Will it be Rumpel? Somebody else? Let me know along with all your favorite moments from this episode, and then you can click right over here for this week's Riverdale or This Is Us recap. Thanks so much for hanging out with me again, and I will see you guys very soon.